the obligatory few seconds to make sure that we're all good. Okay, cool. Dark Bleating's Goat Tribe. I am here and I'm really excited to have Mocha Pennington. I say Mocha. I know that that's not right.
No,
Mocha
I understand. Like a
Pennington.
lot of people from the UK say my name like that.
Yeah, so I do apologize every time I say it.
It's fine.
So Mocha is author of short stories. You may have heard me going on and on and on about Farewell to Flesh, the year that I read Dark Murmurs, the anthology, and also recently released, I'm going to make sure I get the whole title right, Price Manor, The House That Seeks, which was your debut novella, I believe.
Yes.
So welcome and thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So you are the first author that I invited on when I'd only read one piece of your work. Because usually I like to make sure that I'm really well read with an author before I start inviting them on, just to make sure that I know what I'm talking about with their work.
Yeah.
But I read Farewell to Flesh and I was so bowled over by it. We'll tell people what it's about in a minute. But I was so impressed by it and moved, and I Googled you immediately because I was like, who is this person and I only just to discover that you're fairly new to indie publishing, so not an enormous amount out yet. And I thought, so when you let me know that your novella was coming out, I was really happy because I was like, okay, good. So I can, it won't be weird if I ask you to do this interview now that we have like another whole book as well that we can talk about. But I knew from that first one that I had to have you as a guest here.
I appreciate that.
Would you like to tell people what your novella is about, first of all?
Well, it's part of a series. Like each book in the series, a different author writes. And it's just centers around a house that appears out of nowhere. It can come and go wherever it wants. It can weave through time. It's exciting. Like whenever I first read the first one by Mike Salt, I was like, I mean, if I'm ever offered to be a part of this, like I definitely want to be a part of it. And like a few months later, my friend Spencer Hamilton, he reached out and was like, hey, we're looking for some more authors to join the Price Manor. Do you want to join? And I was like, yes.
It's such a good book. First of all, when I wrote my review, I was comparing it the feel wise to Silent Hill, the video games. I love Silent Hill, and I think that this book is the first thing that has ever reminded me of Silent Hill, but like in the best ways, because of the atmosphere and like that whole like the place looks normal initially, although it's a house that has appeared out of nowhere, but it's like you think you could expect certain things, and then it's just it feels a little bit Dark World to me. Are you fans of those games at all, or like I
liked Resident Evil more than I liked the Silent Hill.
Yeah.
But I loved Resident Evil as a kid. Like my brother and I used to play Resident Evil 2 all the time.
Yeah, me and my cousin used to do that. We'd have sleepovers and play Resident Evil and be scared, or like Silent Hill was a bit scary for me at the time. I'm playing it now with my brother for the YouTube channel, and I'm a nightmare. I just keep dying, screaming, dying, and I'm probably not the most entertaining like let's play gamer to watch because I suck. But
I mean, I did too, but I was like, but they're so much fun. I don't care.
Yeah, they are fun. So I'd never heard of the Price Manor series, by the way, so I've added them all to my wish list now, but I'm glad that I got to read yours first. So for people who haven't picked this up yet, it's this house appears and a woman goes into it, and there are other guests, and it's like it's sort of framed initially like a fairly exclusive dinner party of certain people are there, but then things are just not as they seem, and it just like there were just some really, really scary scenes in here, and I just made a video about how I never feel scared when I'm reading fiction anymore because I'm desensitized. So if you're looking for stuff with scary scenes, I would say this is a really good option.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
What kind of inspires you, do you think? Or anything, it doesn't have to be horror, I suppose, to inspire your writing.
I mean, it can be like a conversation I hear. Like I can hear two people having a conversation. I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. Like it can be anything, like a movie or like music. I was trying to get a book published a long time ago, and I was listening to a lot of Slipknot back in the day. And I was like, their music inspired me to like write the book that I was trying to get published that no one wanted.
Well, I'd be interested in reading that. I'm a huge Slipknot fan, and I'm inspired by music as well. I've gone more into the sort of like prog metal side of things as I've aged, but but yeah, I'd love to read something inspired by Slipknot. I bet that's awesome.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun writing it.
With your short stories, I know you've been published in multiple anthologies now, haven't you?
Yeah.
What was your first published story?
It was Cedar Road. It was like, I think 2018, and then like a really small press. It went out of print by now. But it was my first one. Whenever I first got it published, I was crying. Like I got like the email at like late at night. My roommate and my friends were all sleeping, and I was just in my room by myself crying. Like, oh my God, I'm so excited.
Yeah, I cried for my first story acceptance as well, because I'd been submitting a while and getting rejected.
Me too.
Yeah, I cried on my last story acceptance, so that's still.
So it still happens.
Yeah, it's exciting though.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is.
Do you have a favorite story from your own works so far?
I really liked a story that I wrote called Liked. It was featured in volume 3 of the Women of Horror anthology. And actually, Cassandra was in that one. That was in my novella. She was in that one. I really, really like that one a lot. And I like Farewell to Flesh too. That's one of my favorites.
Farewell to Flesh. I just reread my review before we started talking, but I remembered everything I said anyway. I was just making sure. But I'm very, really scared. And if I can't be scared by a horror story, I want to at least feel moved. And I was crying in a couple of pages on Farewell to Flesh. It's so I think that you're really strong with connecting your reader to your characters, and like the empathetic bond that you're able to form. And I found that character so relatable. And it's a horror story, so things are inevitably not going to go well. But I was like, please, please have a happy ending. When I write stories that are dark like that, it takes me into a kind of like dark headspace. And I was just wondering if you like, did you have to cheer yourself up after you wrote that? Because I can imagine emerging from a story like that is a bit heavy.
No, because I'm on social media a lot and I see like comments people make and stuff. Like I was inspired by the story. I was like at the bar. And like a transgender woman came up to me and was like, oh my God, you're so pretty. Like, I want to look like you. And I was like, girl, you are gorgeous. I don't know why you want to look like me. You're gorgeous. And she was talking about like how like her complexion was a lot darker and she didn't like her arms. And I was like, no, you are stunning. So I was a little inspired by that conversation I had with her.
Yeah, it was I really felt a connection there, because I think a lot of us are really harsh about how we look, and it doesn't matter what other people say to you about your appearance, unless they're saying horrible things, because for some people ticks. But yeah, I think that you did such a great job of communicating what's like elements of that story. Obviously, not everybody is going to understand the exact viewpoint, but I still thought it was like universally relatable to women, just in general. And it was just so strong. And it was I think it was the first story in that anthology, and it was my favorite. I liked other stories in the anthology, but that was my favorite by far. So it like really got like hit the ground running for the book. So yeah, so I just basically just wanted to gush about the story and compliment you for that, because it's
no, I really, really appreciated. If you reached out and everything, I was like, oh my God, like I really appreciated that a lot.
Well, I just if I really connect to a story, I do like to let the author know if I'm able to. And sometimes I feel a bit weird. I feel less weird since I've started reviewing stuff though.
Yeah.
Than sending like a DM. But I like to hear it if somebody connects to something I wrote, and that makes me feel good then if I know. I have to ask you a really serious question. So word on the street is you have a crush on Jack Reacher, and I need to know if it's the book, film, or TV show version.
The book. Like
Okay.
I started reading the Jack Reacher novels like in college before like the movies came out or anything like that. And I was like, I think, what was the first one I read? I forget. It was like Worth Dying For, I think, maybe. I think that was it. And I fell in love with the character. I was like, he's so hot. Whenever they came out with the movies with Tom Cruise, I was like, I don't want to see it because that's not Jack Reacher.
I think that Lee Child said that as well. He was like, I'm happy Tom Cruise is, wants to be involved, but really, guys.
Yeah. I haven't seen the television show yet. I'm a little iffy because I want to like it, but like, I don't know. So I'm like holding off. I think they're on their third season now, I believe.
I watched the first season, and there were bits that were a bit like cheesy, but I think that they did a better job with casting. I have to say he's a lot more like so
like Jack Reacher,
yeah. I actually picture someone more like him from the book description.
Yeah.
Do you read a lot of horror, or do you read sort of more widely across genres?
I like to say I read across all genres, but like I really don't. Like I read like horror and thrillers and some dark fantasy. I read a few romances, like Lisa Jackson. She had a few books I read and I really liked a lot. Yes, it's mostly horror and thrillers.
I always have to ask people who write horror that, because I try to dabble in other genres, but I just find that I don't enjoy other genres as much. And I'm like, well, time is short. There's something to read. I may as well just stay where I'm happy.
Exactly. And I like reading like the darker stories. It always interests me more. I keep my interest. Like whenever I read like literary fiction, I'm like, I mean, it's beautifully written, but I'm just a little bored. I feel bad telling that to people because they're like, what are you talking about? Such and such book was amazing. And I was like, I mean, I'm sure it was, but I just couldn't get through it.
Yeah, I find that with I like classic horror, but not all of it. And that's a bit unpopular to say, but I'm just like, some
like,
of it isn't great.
Like Poe, like some of his stuff, I'm like, I can't get through it. It's so dense.
Yeah, when you're trying to decipher the language, it does take the fun out of actually experiencing the story. I'm horror through and through. Sometimes I dabble, but most of the other genres there's a horror slant to it anyway. So like, that's where I live as well.
Yeah, that's my happy place.
Do you have a favorite protagonist from any genre?
I don't think so. I'm trying to think. Well, Akasha from Queen of the Damned, I really liked her.
I loved her. I loved her.
I really enjoyed her.
I really I really enjoyed those first few Vampire Chronicles books, and I rewatched the movie The Queen of the Damned recently, and expected to cringe because that came out when I was a teenager, just going into my goth phase, and it was perfect for me then. And I watched it, and I thought, this is not entirely the cringe fest I thought it was going to be. I still like it. So
I mean, I liked it when I first saw it, and then like I read the book and I was like, wait, hold on.
yeah. Did you notice that they kind of took all of the best stuff out?
Yeah, and they just like kept like the main story in there.
Yeah, I was like, oh come on, guys, there was way better
There was
stuff.
so much. The book was almost like 500 pages.
Yeah, and the vampire Lestat they just skipped over and didn't bother. And
Oh
I was
yeah. I heard like Anne Rice wanted them to start with the Vampire Lestat, but they're like, no, we're just gonna do the Queen of the Damned.
yeah, it's not the best adaptation of the book, but
No.
I was trying to describe to my husband yesterday, funnily enough, about the buzz around that film if you were into like the goth scene and like if you were just going to new metal, especially if you like Korn, because Jonathan Davis wrote a lot of the songs, and I saw
Yeah.
him perform a solo set of that soundtrack once at a festival, and I don't know why, but it was sexy.
I mean, the songs are real. That's like I always say, like the best thing about the movie was the soundtrack, because
Yeah,
the sound, like the music, and that's really good.
yeah,
The
yeah.
lyrics and everything are very sexy, I feel like.
It was fun to see live because this was Download Festival, so that's usually just like all heavy metal, but
Uh-huh.
the crowd was just like dancing, and you don't normally see that as much as a circle pit.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, it was a vibe. Um, um, do you listen to any music when you're writing?
No, I like total silence, or as silent as I can get. I
Hmm.
like the I know it's difficult for me to like concentrate if I hear like other stuff like going on in the background. Like sometimes I can like zoning out, but I can't listen to music because I get too involved in the music.
Yeah, I'm the same, especially stuff with lyrics. I don't know how people do that.
Yeah, I don't either. I can listen to like I think it's like the pink noise. Like I can
Hmm.
do that because like cancel stuff out, but I can't listen to music.
Do you have a writing routine?
Not really. Like I bully myself into writing. Like, no, you're gonna write such and such amount today. Try to at least. And I sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
Yeah, I try to have a routine, but it just
It never
I
works out.
can't stick to one. So
Or sometimes I'll have like bursts of like I'll get really inspired and start writing. Like it can be like 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, no, I just have to finish this. But another time like I try to write and I just can't.
Mhm.
So just let it come naturally.
Yeah, I think that's the best way for me too, because otherwise I get really angry with myself
Hmm.
if I don't do my word count or something. And so yeah, better to not just be in a cycle of that all the time. When you're writing your stories or your characters specifically, do you know like sort of like on a thematic level what you're writing on a first draft, or is that something that you like see later when you've read it and then you like go back and edit? Because I've noticed that you have a lot of really like duplicitous characters in your stories, people that you should be able to trust and then you can't, or people that are showing a side, you know, if you take them at face value, they're fine, but then you realize there's something wrong. And
Yeah.
I noticed that through the work of yours I've read so far. So I was wondering if that's like a conscious thing or something that naturally works its way into your.
I feel like it kind of just naturally works itself in because never I know like what the story is going to be about, but like the character development and everything, like I know how I want them to be, but they're like, no, that's we're not like that. We're gonna do something. We're gonna do this.
Mhm.
They like have like a mind of their own.
Yeah, that happens, doesn't it?
Whenever people used to say that, I'm like, oh girl, shut up. And I start like writing. I'm like, oh, I guess that's true. It certainly does.
I sort of unintentionally end up writing characters who are gaslighting people all the time, and I think that that's because I've encountered people in my real life who are like gaslighting me all the time. Like when I'm writing the characters I don't want people to like, that's kind of naturally what happens to the characters. So
Like, oh, yeah. I haven't read anything by you yet. I want to now.
oh, I can send you some stuff.
We'll
I
do
can't promise
that.
you I can't promise it's worth reading, but
No, it's really fun. I want to. I would love to read something from you.
Thank you. Well, I'll send you some stuff when we finish talking.
Okay, good.
What do you think makes a really good horror story for you as you're reading, and is that any different to when you're writing?
Like characters that like are like real characters and like real dialogue. Because sometimes I'm reading something, I'm like, people don't talk like that.
Yeah.
Or like descriptions. I like a lot of people don't like a lot of detail, but I do like a lot of detail. I like, and I like the language too.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that transfers over to whenever I'm writing. Like whenever I'm writing, I like to read stuff that like inspires me, like motivates me to write. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, this book is so good. I want to pull out my laptop to write. And that's what I like to. So yeah, I feel like it does translate over to whenever I'm writing.
Yeah, I was just going to say something about. You said something there, and it made me remember something I wanted to ask you. It'll come back to me. What do you ever feel scared when you're reading? Like, is there anything in particular in a horror plot that actually frightens you?
No, not really. But like, if I know something's about to happen or the person's like lying or something, like I feel secondhand embarrassment more than like I feel like scared for something. I'm like, oh girl, you about to the girl's about to find out what you're doing. It's
Yeah.
like a secondhand embarrassment.
If I'm reading, I very rarely actually feel scared when I'm reading, just because it's hard to actually scare a reader.
Yeah.
But it does happen on occasion, and I always end up like finding my husband. I'm reading a scary story. And he's like, "You're always reading scary stories." I'm like, "No, but I'm scared right now, so I've just put the book down for a minute." Like Joey from Friends, I'm gonna put it in the freezer.
Oh, you put the book in the icebox.
Yeah. Is there anything that you well, I suppose you've already covered this with making your characters sort of like sympathetic and relatable, but is there anything that you really care about as an overall takeaway for your readers, or is that something you don't think about when you're writing at all?
I guess no, I guess I really don't think about it. Like whenever I'm doing like my last draft, I kind of like one like, oh, I hope they feel such and such whenever they read this part. Or like I wanted people to laugh, and if they would read like what Lolita would say, like in The House That Seeks, I'm like, oh, I feel like this is pretty funny. Hopefully, they think it's funny.
Oh
I
yeah.
try to add like little bits of humor into my writing, just to
Oh
like to soften up a little bit.
yeah, it's in The House That Seeks. I really enjoyed that because you did have scary scenes, and some of your descriptions. That's how I knew that we'd be like good horror fan pals, because the way that you were describing certain things, I was like, oh, that's so good. Like the kind of stuff that does freak me out. And your writing is beautiful, by the way. I've been
Thank you
talking
so
about your
much.
stories, but your writing is beautiful, and I the combination of your characters and the way you write them is, I think, what makes your writing really special. What are you working on at the moment?
I just finished a short story that's going to be in, I think it's the 5th volume of The Women in Horror.
Mm-hmm.
I just finished that and I just submitted it. And I'm working on another novella. It's with an editor right now. I'm going to get it back pretty soon.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Can you tell us anything about it, or is it all under wraps?
Um, it's an extended version of my first short story that I
Okay.
mentioned earlier, the house or Cedar Road. It's
Mm-hmm.
a small town horror in the small town surrounded by woods that if you go in, you don't ever come out.
Oh, oh, I'm excited. Do you have favorite horror locations?
Yeah, I guess the woods, because a lot of my stories revolve around the woods. I didn't realize that until my best friend pointed it out. It was like, I don't want to go in the woods and around you. And I was like, why? And I was like, because all your story. I was like, oh, like, I never even thought about that.
Those are my favorite stories to read, is like woodland settings, because where I live in Wales in the UK, and I live in a valley, so in every direction, if you look outside, there are mountains. And it's really pretty, but there's woods on all of the mountains. And when I was a kid, I was always in those woods looking for witches. I don't I don't know why witches. Maybe it was Hansel and Gretel or something, I don't know, but I was always just roaming around trying to find a witch house.
Where are these witches at?
Yeah.
So funny.
And then when I got older and I was looking at Welsh folklore, I learned with disappointment that the Welsh never believed in witches. So I was like, what? Witch lore? You'd think that like Celtic witch lore would be a thing, wouldn't you? But we have fairies instead, apparently. Folklore.
But they're not as fun as witches.
No, I mean they're pretty grisly fairies, though. So.
Oh well.
I have to look at less. Were you a fairy tale person as a kid? Did you like any of the like either Disney or more like the grim side?
No, never. I was younger. I watched like adult shows, shows that I shouldn't be watching. So like I liked The Little Mermaid though.
Oh yeah,
Ursula was fabulous.
Oh, Ursula is fabulous. They're signing contracts and people trying to Welsh on their deals. I was an Alice in Wonderland kid.
I did like Alice in Wonderland too. The animated version. I didn't know that like they originated from something else until like later on. I was like in high school and I was like, oh, wait, what? What really happened? Like that's crazy.
Yeah, it's a cool backstory. Can you remember what your first horror was, either a book or a movie or anything that got you into it?
I think it was Child's Play that I saw whenever I was like really young. It was the first horror movie I saw.
I would have been so scared if I'd seen that as a kid.
My brother was like, oh my God, Chucky's my worst nightmare. And I was just watching it like, well, Mom, cover his eyes then. I want to see how it ends.
My mum was strict about what we were allowed to watch, but then I'd stay at my nan's house on a Tuesday night, and she always taped a film from the TV, and she showed me Jaws, and I was scared of going near anybody, like even the bath, like no water at all. I went home and my mum was like, "Why are you so like? Why don't you want to run the tap?" And I was like, "Oh,
the gas is gonna come out."
Yeah. I've been telling people that I think Return to Oz was my first real horror love, though, because that's a kid's film, but
what was it?
Return to Oz.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
What? I never liked The Wizard of Oz because it's just really kind of not my kind of film. But Return to Oz is a straight up, it's demented.
Is it?
Yeah,
I would have to see it.
Oh yeah, you should. I feel like that should be on everyone's sort of like list of horror films that they've seen, because that was what turned me on to the genre. I think when I was a kid, I was like, what is this?
No, I want to check it out.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, be sure to have a look at it. So I think you like it. This is my final question there before I let you go. But is there a piece of your work that you think is best for people to start with if they haven't read anything by you yet?
No, just dive right in. Dive in. Just pick whatever. Like some of the characters in the scenes, they like overlap.
Mm-hmm.
Like a character we mentioned that will be in another short story or whatever. But just dive in. It's all based pretty much in the same universe.
Yeah, well, yeah, I second that. I don't think that there's a wrong starting place. So I think maybe your novella, though. I think that also, how dare you have such a good debut novella? It's got no business being that good for a debut, I have to tell you.
Thank you. I was it was different. Like whenever I was writing it, it was like different. It was like outside my comfort zone, but because I'm usually just going like knowing what I'm gonna, or kind of knowing what I'm gonna write about, but let everything like develop over time. But it was like a set theme. Like it's gonna be the scene's gonna be in this house, so no, this right around it. It was like different, but like I really enjoyed how it turned out. It was touch and go. The first few months I was writing is I was like, I don't know if it's good or not. But when I finished it, I really liked it a lot.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm gonna put the description, the links in the description for anybody that's watching or listening, so that you can find Mocha online, and also the books and everything that we talked about. Just for ease, just have a little check it out, have a little look.
Just have a cheeky little peek. It's fun, you guys.
Cheeky little peek, and also if you would like to see more branch out of horror, there is also a YouTube channel that I discovered when I was Googling you. Tea Time. Completely different like stuff.
Oh yes, it is.
But really entertaining.
Yeah, we're used to cover YouTube drama, but now we're doing like more like the reality show stuff. Yeah, give us a watch. We have a laugh or two.
I don't watch any reality shows, but I watch YouTubers talking about reality shows. I feel like I don't have to watch them.
I mean, yeah, for the most part, you really don't.
Yeah, you really don't. Okay, well, I just want to thank you again for doing this. It's been such a pleasure to actually like speak to you
Likewise,
face to face or Skype to Skype.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly recommend your fiction to everybody watching, and I hope that people will pick up your novella, check out your short stories and everything. And I'm really looking forward to your next book. So you have to keep me posted.
Oh, I definitely, I will.
We will say goodbye to everybody now. Like I said before, everything will be in the description. So yeah, make sure to check all of Mocha's work out, and let me know what you guys think. And we're gonna, because we're goats at Happy Goat Horror, we're just gonna sign off with bleed.